The rust remover sitting in your garage right now was probably never built to remove rust. Rust isn't dirt and it isn't grease, it's a chemical reaction, iron literally bonding with oxygen, and most bottles on the hardware store shelf were formulated to solve a completely different problem. That mismatch is why so many rust remover products barely touch a bad corrosion problem, while a handful of unglamorous options, some of them decades old, will strip a solid rust crust down to bare metal with a fraction of the effort. 5 products to stop buying, 5 that actually work. Let's get into it. Number 5 to avoid: Coca-Cola. This one's a genuine internet trick, and it does have a real chemical basis, so it's not pure nonsense. Cola contains phosphoric acid, and phosphoric acid is a legitimate rust-fighting ingredient. It shows up in real commercial products too. The problem is concentration and time. The amount of phosphoric acid in a can of soda is small, so it needs hours of soaking to make a visible dent in anything more than light surface rust, and the sugar in cola leaves a sticky residue behind that attracts moisture, which isn't exactly a great environment for a piece of bare metal you just cleaned. It's a fun party trick for a corroded coin or a rusty nail, something you leave overnight and check on out of curiosity. It is not a serious rust removal strategy for anything you actually depend on, and if you're dealing with a tool, a fastener, or a part on something mechanical, you're better off treating this one as a novelty rather than a plan. Number 4 to avoid: straight vinegar with no plan. Vinegar is acetic acid, and acetic acid genuinely does dissolve rust. This is well documented, and it's why vinegar soaks are a common recommendation for small household items. But there's a catch most people never hear about. Acetic acid doesn't know the difference between rust and the good steel underneath it. Leave a part soaking too long and the acid keeps working after the rust is gone, etching and pitting the base metal. It also does nothing about oil or grease sitting on top of the rust, so a lot of people are soaking a part that was never degreased first, then wondering why an hour in a jar of vinegar barely made a difference. Used carefully on a timer, with the part checked regularly, vinegar can still be a fine option for something small and low stakes. Used the way most people actually use it, dropped in a jar and forgotten about for a day or two, it's a coin flip between clean metal and a part that's now pitted worse than when you started. Number 3 to avoid: generic aerosol sprays labeled rust remover with no active ingredient listed anywhere on the can. Walk down the automotive aisle and you'll see plenty of these: bright labels, dramatic before and after photos, vague promises. Flip the can over and a lot of them are essentially light penetrating oils or solvents with a rust-themed label. A penetrating oil is genuinely useful. It's excellent for loosening a seized bolt or a stuck hinge, but that's a different job from actually dissolving rust off a surface. Spraying one on a rusted pan or a corroded tool and wiping it down mostly just redistributes rust dust. It doesn't chemically remove it the way an acid or a proper converter does. The tell is almost always on the back of the can. If you can't find a listed active ingredient, phosphoric acid, citric acid, oxalic acid, anything that's actually known to dissolve iron oxide, you're probably holding a penetrating oil with better marketing, not a genuine rust remover. If you're catching the pattern already, that a lot of what's sold as a rust remover was never actually formulated to dissolve rust in the first place, that's exactly the mindset shift this video is here for. If it's landing, hit that like button now. It's a genuinely simple way to help this reach someone before they waste money on the wrong can. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a good time because we're only a third of the way through and the good stuff is still ahead. Number 2 to avoid: WD-40 used as your primary rust remover. This one trips people up constantly, and it's an honest mistake. WD-40's own branding leans hard into water displacement and rust prevention, so it's natural to assume it also removes existing rust. It doesn't, at least not in any serious way. It can loosen very light surface rust enough to wipe some of it away, and it's genuinely effective at preventing new rust from forming on clean metal. That part is true and well supported, but as a tool for actually dissolving established rust, it's the wrong product for the job. Reach for it to protect a part after you've cleaned it, not to clean the part in the first place. Think of it as the last step in the process, applied to bare metal after the actual rust removal is done, rather than the product you reach for when the rust is already there and established. Number 1 to avoid: using sandpaper or a wire wheel as your only method on anything. Mechanical abrasion absolutely works. It's fast and it's satisfying to watch rust disappear in real time, but it's a blunt instrument. It removes a layer of good metal right along with the rust. It can't reach into pits, threads, or tight crevices where corrosion likes to hide, and on thin or delicate parts, it can genuinely damage what you're trying to save. It has a real place as a finishing step after a chemical treatment. As your entire strategy on its own, it's the reason people wear through parts they were trying to restore or round off details on old tools that chemical stripping would have preserved. If the part has stamped lettering, fine machining, or delicate edges, A wire wheel is often the fastest way to make it look worse, not better, no matter how good the initial progress looks. Now the 5 that actually work. Number 5 that works, a citric acid soak. Citric acid is a mild, food-safe acid, the same compound found in citrus fruit, and it's a genuine favorite among restorers for a simple reason: it's cheap, safe to handle, and effective. Mixed into a bath at the right concentration and left to soak, it removes rust through a process called chelation, where the acid binds to iron oxide molecules and lifts them off the surface, while being much gentler on the base metal than a stronger acid like the one in vinegar or navel jelly. This is the same underlying chemistry that commercial products like Evapo Rust are built around, which is part of why that category has become so popular in restoration circles. To use it, fully submerge the rusted part, let it sit anywhere from a few hours to overnight depending on how bad the corrosion is, then rinse and lightly scrub. What comes out is clean, bare metal, without the pitting you risk from an acid that isn't as forgiving. It's also reusable. A mixed batch can be filtered and used again on the next part, which is part of why it's become the default option for anyone doing this regularly rather than as a one-off project. Number 4 that works, electrolytic rust removal. This is the method serious restorers reach for when a part is too big, too valuable, or too oddly shaped to dunk in a jar. You submerge the rusted piece in a mild washing soda solution, connect it to a low voltage current using a sacrificial piece of scrap steel as the other electrode, and the electrolysis process pulls rust off the surface through a genuine chemical reaction without abrading or attacking the good metal underneath. It's been used for decades in the restoration world on everything from antique tools to old engine blocks, precisely because it reaches into pitting and crevices that no amount of scrubbing can touch. It takes a bit of setup, a plastic tub, some wire, a basic battery charger, but on badly corroded cast iron, it produces results that are genuinely hard to match with anything else on this list. The trade-off is time and space rather than money. It usually takes longer than an acid soak and needs somewhere ventilated to sit, but for a part you actually care about preserving, that patience tends to pay off. We're 2/3 of the way through now, and if any of this is changing how you think about that rusty pile of tools in your garage, that's exactly what a like button is for, so go ahead and tap it. And if you want to see the exact setup for the electrolysis method or the citric acid ratios we use, subscribing means you won't miss that video when it goes up. Number 3 that works, phosphoric acid gel, commonly sold under names like navel jelly. Where a citric acid soak is the gentle, patient option, phosphoric acid gel is the fast, heavy-duty one. It's thick enough to cling to vertical or overhead surfaces, which matters a lot in practice because rust doesn't only show up on flat, horizontal parts you can lay in a tub. It works by converting rust into a more stable compound while also actively dissolving what's on the surface, and it's been a genuine staple in auto body and marine repair for a long time because of how quickly it works on stubborn, established rust. To use it, brush it on, let it sit for the time listed on the label, usually somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes, then scrub and rinse thoroughly. Rinsing matters more than people expect, because leftover acid residue that isn't neutralized can actually contribute to new rust forming later. It's a good option specifically when a soak isn't practical, a fender you can't remove, a frame rail, anything where the part has to stay exactly where it is while you work on it. Number 2 that works, a dedicated rust converter for situations where the goal isn't stripping a part back to bare metal at all. Sometimes what you actually need is to stop rust from spreading before you paint over it, especially on things you can't disassemble and soak. A trailer frame, a gate, a piece of equipment that has to stay in one piece. A genuine rust converter chemically transforms iron oxide into a stable, paintable compound instead of just removing it, which means the rust gets locked in place rather than leaving bare steel exposed to air while you figure out your next step. This is the category restorers reach for on anything too large or too permanent to submerge, and it's often the real difference between a repair that lasts and rust that quietly comes back through the paint within a year. Most rust converters still want the loose, flaking rust knocked off first. They're designed to treat the tightly bonded rust that's left behind, not to work miracles through a thick, crumbling layer. Number 1 that works, and it's not a single product, it's the order you do things in. Mechanical removal paired with the right chemical, done in the correct sequence, is what actually separates a clean, lasting job from an afternoon of frustration. Degrease the part first, because oil and grime sitting on top of rust block any acid or converter from ever reaching it. Then use a chemical soak or gel to break down the bulk of the corrosion. Only after that, finish with light mechanical work, a wire brush or a fine abrasive pad to knock loose any remaining residue and reveal clean metal underneath. Skip any one of those 3 steps and everything else on this list underperforms. It's not one magic can. It's the process that professionals never skip, and it's the real reason their results consistently look better than than a single spray and wipe attempt ever will. Buying a better bottle without changing that order will always disappoint you a little. Getting the sequence right, even with an ordinary product, tends to outperform expectations every time. If you made it all the way here, the real lesson is simple. Rust removal was never about finding one perfect can on a shelf. It's about understanding what rust actually is, a chemical reaction and not just surface grime, and matching the right tool, chemical or mechanical, to the specific job in front of you. If this changed how you look at that rusty pile of tools or that corroded old part sitting in your garage, that's your cue to hit like one more time, drop a comment telling us which method you're trying first, and subscribe if you haven't already, because we test more of these processes head-to-head every week. Remember, the best rust remover was never the one with the flashiest can on the shelf. It's the one restorers have quietly relied on for decades, waiting for you to ask what rust actually is before you try to fight it.